Hello, everyone, and welcome to this fifth annual Daoist Gate Conference. It's amazing to think that this is the fifth year that we're running this conference, this little humble venture that originally was meant to be an in-person conference at the Shwenju Daoist Gate Center in Francistown, New Hampshire. But during the pandemic, obviously, a lot of the plans that we had made were no longer possible. And so, just like the Tao itself, we find a way. And this event is actually a wonderful byproduct of that time because we have so much access to these talks and these recordings. I remember when the event first came about that I was, wow, I would love to go, but there's only so much space, and I didn't merit a space among all these scholars and practitioners of the Taoist arts at the time. And all of a sudden, turning it over to Zoom means that it's so available for the general public and can be a wonderful introduction or deepening to all of these Taoist arts. So when I first came to studying Taoist arts, I thought all about the teachings, the stuff in the books that inspires so many of us to live our lives more in alignment with the Tao. Our first Tai Chi class in 2009 and practiced Qigong pretty much daily since that day. Excuse me, and I would have these quotes from books on my wall to remind myself to live life better. Zhou Shifu himself says that the Tao is a path, is a road. And Xiu the cultivation of the Tao, is really nothing more complicated than fixing our path, fixing our road, smoothing out the bumpy parts, filling in the potholes, making ourselves of service as we move through the world. Anyone that has visited Zhou Shifu's Shunju Daoist Gate Center in New Hampshire can tell you how genuinely charismatic Shifu is and how he can distill these great, grand Taoist teachings into genuinely funny anecdotes. And teach he does. Look at the schedule. Every year, the center is expanding, allowing more teaching opportunities and allowing Zhou Shifu to reach into his large bag of abilities, of teachings that he has to offer the world. And the center itself is now transforming into a creatively engineered house, from a creatively engineered house in the woods to a beautiful training hall, retreat center with lodging and teaching spaces, outdoor training spaces, and even a tea house now, which I think is beautiful. I've known Joe Schiffer for about 10 years now, which is amazing to say. I actually changed jobs to make sure I had a schedule that fit his class schedule in the beginning. And I was taking a walk the other day in my neighborhood, and we had this huge rainstorm that lasted for hours. And I was thinking to myself, I live in a flood-prone area, so I went over to check out the river. And it made me think about all the time that I spent with Zhou Shifu, from the Chinatown dinners to building parts of the center with him, which was a genuine honor to be a part of that. And even to the pandemic talk show that we did on YouTube way back when. And then, of course, the actual lectures and the actual daily classes that I was learning from him. And I was thinking, looking at this river, that the teaching that I remember most vividly was not actually the teachings itself, but the center was probably the most profound teaching that I ever received from Shifu. Working with him and seeing him without fear nailing in ceiling boards, standing on nothing but a ladder or at times the ledge of a wall where the wall met the ceiling, and where it appeared there was actually nothing that he was standing on. It was kind of this magical floating Taoist moment, this Kung Fu master moment, watching him work up there. Seeing the general, lack of resources, lack of manpower to build an entire center, entire training halls, extra places to train, to teach, to practice. Seeing the obstacle of money to create all these things. And the amazing thing about working with Shufu is that he was like that river, that overflowing river. If there was a rock in the stream, he was going right around it. And at a certain point, the momentum of building the center got so much that the water was just going over everything. It was an unstoppable force to build this, and there was never any doubt in his mind that he was going to accomplish his project. Even when realistically, some major obstacles like the pandemic and everyone wanting to stay in their house made running an in-person center feel difficult at times. He took a huge chance in moving his home base an hour and a half outside of the city to a much more remote location to attract, not only to attract more students, but also to basically give him the opportunity to teach some of the things within his Daoist arts that he was not teaching or not able to teach in an hour and a half class, 2-hour class in Chinatown. And when we first started the first teacher training, you know, it was something smaller, and I've seen this center blossom, and it's really been lovely to see. Even in the quietest moments, he has held on to his vision. It may not have been loud, but again, it was pretty unstoppable to create a Daoist center in the USA where he could teach the full spectrum of Daoist arts. As somebody who has large classes, dedicated following, always the best demonstrations in Chinatown when he was teaching in Boston, that's a huge leap of faith. So, Shufu, do you want to say welcome to everyone here?
Yeah, hey, yes, okay, good morning. Of course, we Daoist Gate always welcome everyone. And a warm welcome to the Daoist conference. Special thanks to the speakers, today attending this seminar, conference. Of course, each year, this conference bring together teachers and scholars from a diverse background to share their knowledges. Our goal is to offer this interested in Daoist culture and house practice, a more complicated and completed and meaningful understanding of the Daoism. At the same time, we hope to make Daoist tradition more accessible to a wide audience, while also creating a space for participants to meeting and contact with the inspired teachers, to find good teachers. That gathering is designed to encourage close interaction with our presenters. If you have any questions, we really warmly engaged you to raise them. You can create and engagement an essential part of this dialogue. We're delighted and honest to have with us today our distinguished speakers. Yeah. So thank you for being here with us. I hope everyone can inspire or learn something from here. So go ahead.
Thank you, Shufu.
No problem.
So when we were talking about this conference, Joe Shufu told me that he wanted to make the conference about divination and Chinese medicine. And while at first, for some people, these two subjects may feel somewhat different in a modern lens, they're actually been closely linked for thousands of years, for basically the entire development of Chinese medicine. There's a quote from Sun Simiao, the Tang Dynasty physician, Chinese medicine, imperial doctor, sometimes referred to as the king of medicine, very familiar for anyone who studied Chinese medicine or Taoism both. Those who do not know the I Ching are unfit to be called imperial physicians. And so I came across this quote researching some I Ching related topics recently. But what does this really mean from this legend, absolute legend of traditional Chinese medicine? Why should the doctors who take care of China's emperor know the details of a book of divination? And what does this opinion mean for acupuncturists, practitioners of Chinese medicine, and those who take themselves as diviners or energy workers today? Although it feels somewhat far from a modern education to understand traditional Chinese medicine's development, we really actually have to have an understanding of how Chinese culture has viewed space, time, the spirit world, and disease throughout its history. What are the first recorded mentions of disease in ancient China? They're actually on oracle bones, a divinatory's tool of the Shang dynasty, dated back to as far back as 1600 BCE. These oracle bones would be inscribed on ox scapulas, or more famously, turtle shells, heated until they're cracked, with the diviner interpreting what these cracks mean. They are written on these bones common pains and diseases, not only spiritual problems. And they were often interpreted as coming from an unhappy ancestor, for example, something that you could only know and access through a divination tool. While the traditional Chinese medicine we know today does not diagnose ancestral ills, this way of seeing the world tells us a few things. One, we know from the beginning of human civilization, there has been pain and sickness. The earliest written Chinese characters on these bones tell us that. And from this pain and sickness, humanity has looked for two things: a cure and also for understanding. So it only makes sense that the early humans may have put these two things together: medicine to relieve an illness, and divination as a form of looking and understanding the hidden or root causes of disease and bad fortune. As Chinese civilization advanced, understanding our human experience through these two branches of divination and medicine developed deeply and together. The same five phases or five elements of Chinese medicine are the same five phases of feng shui. The way that divination methods use cycles of time to predict events are the same cycles that correspond to qi moving through the organs and channel system on a daily basis. The way that divination methods use cycles of time to predict events are the same cycles that correspond to qi moving through the organs and channel system of the human body, and can help us determine what days are the best for medicinal interventions, what days the disease may be at its worst or best, and what moments during the day we can expect certain events to occur. The foundational underpinnings of this book, the I Ching of divination, are also the fundamental diagnostic patterns of traditional Chinese medicine. As strange as it may sound to a modern person, these two arts of divination and medicine are actually inseparable from a classical Daoist perspective. During this conference, we will discuss the co-creation and interaction of traditional Chinese medicine and divination, as well as topics that dive deeper into specific subjects within one and both of these large topics.